Welcome back to another edition of the Here We Go podcast. I am your host, Trent Ging, and today I'm going to briefly talk about the Baltimore Ravens game. Boy, that was a rough game. And I'm going to say this for all of the talk of Mike Tomlin being the master motivator, it felt a lot like he failed to motivate. Team came out flat, as has been the case all season. Didn't feel like either side of the ball looked like they were ready to go to start this game. And right off the jump, we had a chance to get the ball first and maybe put a little bit of momentum into this game. So our offense has not moved the ball at all over the course of 4 weeks. We just did not look like the same team in the last 4 weeks of the season as we did in the entire time previously with Russell Wilson under center. And I thought, why? First of all, the question of why do you take the ball when your offense has not played well? The answer to that simply is I have to assume he wanted to take the crowd out of the game pretty early on, and the best way to do that is to mount an offensive drive. It's quite a difficult decision, really, if you sit and think about it, because you have an offense that's not doing well. You have a Baltimore team that's just absolutely rolling right now. You're in Baltimore, and our defense really hasn't played fantastic down the stretch either. So, I mean, it came down to I feel like he wanted to try to set some tone, took the ball. I questioned it initially, but I'm like, okay, I see where you're going with this. And I feel like the entire script was just absolutely falling apart right from the snap. You have a guy in Pat Fryermuth who I consider to be maybe one of the most reliable pass catchers, not just on the Steelers, but typically he's pretty reliable for any receiver. Ends the Cincinnati game with a drop, comes into this game, first play of the game. They try to get him a quick, nice, easy pass, get Russell Wilson and this offense into rhythm a little bit, maybe try to get ahead of the sticks. A catch that should have been about 5 to 6 yards with a little room to work absolutely just goes nowhere. So we get another drop on this with Pat Fryermuth. Instead of being set up for like a 2nd and 7, it turns out we're at a 2nd and 10. And it really felt like that set the tone for the remainder of the game, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. So we go 3 and out on that series. Punt, we get Baltimore kind of backed up at their own 5 yard line after penalties and things like that happen. And you think to yourself, okay, get a stop here, get the ball back. We should have some good field position. The only problem with that is we never got the stop. Baltimore goes 95 yards down the field, scores a touchdown, and it's just like, what do you do? I mean, what do you do at that point? You try to set the tone. A drop right off the bat kind of it makes it fall apart. You don't mount much of a drive. Then you come out, get a good punt, get a penalty in your favor, have them on their own 5 yard line, and you think to yourself, we have the highest paid defense in the NFL. They've got to be able to get off the field and get us the ball back. That just never happens. And it felt like it really deflated the team from that point forward. And it's hard to imagine that one offensive series for Pittsburgh and one offensive series for Baltimore set the tone for the remainder of the game. It wasn't just that Baltimore scored on a 95-yard drive. It's that they ran the entire way down the field. They ran the whole way. I mean, if you go back and you check that drive, 13 play drive, and I bet you there was two passes the whole drive. I mean, that's just one of those things that they ran the ball 11 out of the 13 plays and just stuff it straight down your defense's throat. And at that point, it just felt like all of the wind was taken completely out of the Pittsburgh Steelers at that point moving forward. We followed that up with a 3-and-out, then a 3-and-out, then 5 plays. I mean, we just never really got going. So you have 6 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 5 plays punt, 1 play end of half. I mean, that was it. That was the entire offense in the first half. You're not going to win football games without moving the ball whatsoever. And so when you look at things that need to change, and there are big changes that need to happen in this offseason, you can't go down 21-0 at half and expect to mount a comeback in the second half. It's just not going to happen that way. And so for all the people who are looking at box scores and talking about how well Russell Wilson played and how this defense never got us in the game, it's fair to criticize the defense. But again, the offense didn't do anything whatsoever in the first half. And you brought Russell Wilson in here specifically for playoff football. And where was it at? He waits until the second half and we're down 21-0. It's too late. You can't make a run in the NFL down 21-0 and only have a half football left to go. Not only that, but you gave the ball back to Baltimore. Now, this is the one chance where the defense did get off the field without really doing anything. So the offense goes down and scores, and you're like, okay, 21-7, we're back in this thing. But then Baltimore goes right back down the field and scores again. And it just, there was no chance that this defense looked like they had any life in them at that point. Again, I felt like that first series of the game just deflated them. They looked uninterested at times. And I remember messaging a friend of mine, and I said I don't ever remember a Pittsburgh Steelers defense looking like they could care less that this is the playoffs. And not only is it the playoffs, it's a division rival in their home stadium. And to be honest with you, this game was quite the embarrassment. I mean, the Ravens run for 299 yards. Derrick Henry goes absolutely off. And it wasn't just the way that they ran up and down the field. But, I mean, at some point, Tomlin has got to quit being the master motivator and actually put game plan in place. Because what they did was send Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt to go tackle Lamar Jackson. And Lamar's like, okay, I'll just keep giving it to Derrick Henry, who's going to run for like 180 yards. At what point do you think that that's going to be successful? You have to stop Derrick Henry first. That was the first and foremost thing needed to happen in order to win this game. And they weren't even attempting to do that. He was a secondary option for the defense to try to shut down. And we never got that point. Not only did we not shut down Derrick Henry, but you still didn't really shut down Lamar Jackson. This is probably the best game he played against us, and he didn't have to do a ton, but he ran the ball extremely effectively. We tried to contain him, keep him in the pocket. We didn't run the same spy looks that I felt like we had success with in the first game and somewhat in the second game. We just tried to contain, and he just ran right up through the middle. And so I think the biggest takeaway from what we saw in this is there is a legitimate issue with coaching. If you ask me, I think Mike Tomlin has run his course here in Pittsburgh. If you also ask me, I don't think there's any chance in the world, and I know Art Rooney said that he's already said they're not trading him. They're not getting rid of him. That he fully expects Tomlin to be back next year. I just don't see how you have that mindset after watching what you've watched. it's very evident to me that Terrell Austin was not up to this job of defensive coordinator. But I'm not even sure how much to do with it. How much of this is his game plan, or how much of this is Mike Tomlin's game plan? We know Tomlin's fingerprint is on everything. It's on the offense. He plays extremely conservatively. He has these play callers call the games extremely conservatively. That's not today's NFL. If you brought a guy like Russell Wilson in here to take this offense to a new level, you've got to open the playbook up and quit playing so conservatively. That's not how the NFL works. That's not how you score points.
And so by not taking any chances, it's kind of dumbfounding to me. So I don't know what you expect to do if the offense is going to stay extremely conservative. And to be fair, we did come out passing the ball more this game. I mean, we came out throwing on the first 2 first downs and tried to change up a little bit. But we really didn't open the offense up until it was too little too late. I mean, we're down 21 points. What was the point? Once you're down that far, what exactly is the point? Because I don't know what the point is at that point. It doesn't make sense to me. At some point, sorry, having some issues with my headset here.
There we go. Sorry about that. I think the thing that's the most evident to me, in my opinion, is that the organization, again, they're not going to get rid of Mike Tomlin. I feel like that needs to happen. I feel like the message has gotten stale. I think that you really need to do something to shake things up, because we're literally trying to do the definition of insanity here. We're trying to just completely use 1990s football to win ball games, and you can run the ball to win. I mean, we just watched Buffalo run heavily. We watched the Baltimore Ravens run heavily. We know that the Eagles run heavily. You can win football games that way. You also have to have the personnel to do it. And right now we don't. But those same teams will also take chances, and we don't. That's just not in Tomlin's DNA. And so I think the thing that the organization needs to do is start forcing Tomlin to be more of a CEO and less of a guy who's designing the X's and O's. Because the game's passed him by. And Arthur Smith, while he's not known as the most wildly creative play caller out there, it's also fair to say that he has been a guy who can be creative. I just feel like right now, Coach Tomlin's not allowing that to happen. And Terrell Austin, the fact that we could even sit here after his second full season, and I can make an argument that I don't even know if he's the one coming up with these defensive game plans, or if this is all Mike Tomlin and he's just there as the figurehead. I mean, we've heard people talk about it's basically Tomlin's defense. So then who's the bigger issue on defense? Is Terrell Austin actually an okay coordinator or not? We don't know, because we don't even know if he's calling the plays. We don't know if it's his game plan. We don't know if it's Tomlin's game plan. And that's an issue. I mean, you're going to hire coordinators. If I'm a coordinator in the NFL, it don't matter if you're offense or defense, there'd be no motivation for me to come to Pittsburgh. Your career is going to go nowhere. I mean, look at the coaching tree under Mike Tomlin. Todd Haley's probably the most successful guy. Mike Munchak. Who else has he had that's had any success at any other team? You know, Dick LeBeau was a guy he brought in. All right. Dick LeBeau was a Hall of Famer as a coach and a player. So I don't know that you can really give Tomlin kudos for that one. But at the same time, we're the Ben Johnsons of the world and the Bobby Slowicks of the world. Why would they ever want to come here? I mean, honestly, like, those guys are obviously two guys that would be more in line to be a head coach somewhere. But I'm just saying those next guys coming up, like what those guys were not that long ago, why would they want to come here? You're under the thumb of Mike Tomlin, and he's not going to allow you to run offenses. I mean, could anybody honestly imagine Tomlin allowing an offensive play caller to call a designed play where it appears that Jared Goff is going to fall to the ground and then gets up and throws a touchdown? Tomlin would have lost his mind if that was even a suggestion. He might have fired that guy immediately for even thinking of taking a risk like that. Like, I don't see how there's no level of creativity here, because Tomlin doesn't want creativity. He wants the plain Jane offense with the plain Jane defense, and he wants his talent to win. But we're not the better teams in so many of these games when you're facing playoff caliber teams, and that's why we keep getting blown out. We don't have the quarterbacks to overcome it. We don't have the offensive line to overcome it. And the defense, I mean, you're just putting them in situations where there's no reason they should ever pull this thing out. We argued about the Bills game where, last year, oh, well, if TJ plays, maybe that game's. Buffalo was better. You weren't stopping Josh Allen. And the same thing is true today. We were not going to stop Baltimore. We just didn't have the pieces to do it. I mean, we're running as the most basic defense as possible. And I've heard people make arguments both ways that, there wasn't an issue with the effort. There was an issue with the effort. I'm going to tell you right now, for me, watching the game, I felt like that defense quit. I felt like in the third quarter, they flat quit. I mean, I'm watching a pass, and I think it was Tylan Wallace. We get a sack on Lamar Jackson. It's like 2nd and 20. He throws a ball that's probably about 15 yards. Minka Fitzpatrick starts ripping at the ball instead of tackling the player to create a 3rd and 5. But this defense all year has been trying to get turnovers and create, sacks and big splash plays and this and that. And as he's trying to rip away at the ball, I'm watching Dante Jackson stand about 2 yards, maybe 3 yards behind the sticks, watching the entire thing unfold, does not even attempt to come up to help make the tackle. That's effort to me. That's a lack of effort. I mean, Cam Sutton, I don't know if a guy could get spiked off the ground any harder than Cam Sutton got spiked by Isaiah Likely. Looked like he wanted nothing to do with that play from the start. A guy who shouldn't have been on the field. Beanie Bishop has clearly been better. But you can't move Beanie Bishop around the way you can move Cam Sutton around. Well, it really doesn't matter where you move Cam Sutton. He sucks no matter where he's at. That's just a reality. Dante Jackson, I said that dude shouldn't have played. I would have rather seen Corey Trace out there. I didn't think Dante Jackson played that well in this game. PFF graded him pretty well. I think he was like a 70 something, 77 maybe, 74, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know. I disagree. I didn't think he was that good. So we've got a lot of things to clean up, and changes definitely need to happen. I'm just not convinced they're going to be the changes that actually matter. So I'll be talking more about those things, but I just think it's incredible that here we are, another year, another embarrassing loss in the playoffs. Absolutely nothing looks different right now, other than we have some nice young pieces to build with. I do think the offensive line, as much as they struggled this year, they have some nice pieces there. Zach Frazier, I think, is going to be an absolute fantastic player for his career. Broderick Jones definitely made strides as the year went on. We saw the boneheaded error where he and Dan Moore decided to pull in and try to take each other out of the play. I think Broderick may have gotten a wrong call on that one. Mason McCormick, fourth round rookie guy who should have never been on the field. Doesn't play great, but I mean, you know what? I thought you got some good. I don't know. We'll see what happens from here. I really feel like there's big changes that need to be coming, and I want to save some of that for the Thursday episode. Colin Lowry and I will be back on here. We're going to be doing some hypothetical things, and we're also going to do some very realistic changes that need to happen within its organization. So, as always, I hope you guys liked the video. Sorry for some of the technical issues I had this time. But as always, like, share, subscribe, leave your comments. Let me know what you thought. I know we're all in kind of like Steeler misery right now, but it's on to the off season, so there's going to be a lot more to talk about between now and the beginning of next season. So hope you all stick around, check all that content out. Thank you. Have a great day.